Look at the economic landscape unfolding across Europe and the globe right now. The cost of living is rising quietly, while traditional wages remain utterly stagnant. You are repeatedly told that your 20s are solely for exploring, making mistakes, and living carelessly in the present moment. This is a highly effective, comforting illusion, sold to keep the masses dependent and distracted. While you are trading your most energetic years for fleeting weekend escapes, the foundation of your future is crumbling. The financial architecture you construct in this specific decade will definitively dictate the rest of your existence. It will either forge an unbreakable chain of lifelong wage slavery or build the ultimate fortress of personal freedom. Are you prepared to wake up at 40, exhausted and entirely dependent on a system that views you as a mere statistic? By the end of this narrative, you will possess the precise psychological and mechanical strategies to construct undeniable wealth from nothing. These are not mere suggestions, but the cold, calculated maneuvers required to ensure you never have to beg for your own time again. We will dismantle the traps designed to keep you poor and replace them with systems of absolute control. A single source of income is not safety. It is extreme vulnerability. Relying entirely on a standard monthly paycheck leaves you at the complete mercy of corporate structures that view you as a replaceable asset. To break free from this inherent fragility, you must construct a secondary engine of capital generation. This is commonly referred to as a side business, but you must view it as your personal liberation fund. Building this secondary engine demands a ruthless sacrifice of your leisure time. You must be willing to trade your evenings and your weekends to develop digital skills, offer a service, or systematically flip physical items for profit. The specific vehicle you choose matters significantly less than your execution and consistency. The ultimate objective is to generate surplus capital that exists completely outside of your baseline survival budget. Generating raw capital is only the first phase, because inflation will continuously erode its purchasing power over time. You must command your money to multiply silently while you sleep, removing human emotion from the equation entirely. The most efficient and proven mechanism for this is the broad market index fund. Consider the historical and mathematical weight of the global stock market. If you steadily deploy $200 every single month into a top-tier index fund, the mathematics of compound interest become an unstoppable force. Over a timeline of 40 years, that minimal daily sacrifice mutates into a multi-million-dollar empire. You must then construct an impenetrable fortress around these gains, using government-approved tax wrappers. Automate this extraction process entirely, ensuring the capital is deployed before your mind can rationalize spending it. Most ordinary individuals view credit cards as a gateway to immediate gratification, which rapidly devolves into a trap of high-interest debt. You must completely invert this dynamic, turning credit into a precision weapon for the disciplined mind. By systematically routing your inevitable daily living expenses through strategic credit networks, you extract reward points and global travel privileges without spending any additional capital. You must pay the balance completely to zero at the exact end of every single month, thereby nullifying any cost. This relentless financial discipline simultaneously constructs an impeccable credit profile in the background. A pristine credit score is the absolute key to unlocking heavily discounted leverage when you eventually need to acquire large physical assets. Seeing the world through these free systems builds a psychological resilience that geographical isolation simply cannot provide. Your external financial wealth will rarely exceed your internal intellectual development. The marketplace pays you strictly and coldly based on the perceived value of your problem-solving abilities. To permanently increase your yield, you must drastically upgrade your intellectual software and critical thinking skills. Do not fall victim to the expensive illusions sold by digital charlatans who promise overnight riches in exchange for exorbitant course fees. True, lasting education requires solitary focus, patience, and the consumption of inexpensive, dense knowledge. The return on investment from a carefully studied book or a newly mastered technical skill is mathematically limitless. In your youth, your mind exhibits peak neuroplasticity, allowing you to absorb and implement complex frameworks far faster than older competitors. Become a silent observer, a relentless consumer of high-level strategy, and apply what you learn immediately. Eventually, the digital numbers accumulating on your screen must be anchored deeply into physical reality. Acquiring tangible real estate is a non-negotiable phase in establishing lasting, generational permanence. It provides you with structural leverage, a hardened barrier against inflation, and highly consistent monthly cash flow. For a young strategist, the most effective entry point is acquiring a primary property and immediately placing tenants into the secondary spaces. This method, often called house hacking, entirely shifts the heavy burden of the mortgage onto the shoulders of others. You are effectively living for free, forcing the market to quietly buy the physical asset for you. It requires a temporary, calculated sacrifice of your complete privacy and comfort. However, this discomfort allows you to rapidly accelerate your overall net worth while your peers are trapped in permanent rental cycles. The human ego is undoubtedly the single greatest enemy of long-term wealth accumulation. Modern society heavily encourages you to signal false prosperity by financing rapidly depreciating liabilities, most notably expensive new vehicles. Purchasing a luxury car in your 20s simply to impress strangers is a profound strategic error that cripples your foundation. It instantly obliterates your liquid capital and binds you to restrictive monthly payments. You must actively choose invisibility over applause. Acquire a reliable, heavily depreciated vehicle that simply transports you between objective points efficiently. Nobody expects a young person to be immensely wealthy, so you possess the perfect camouflage to build your financial empire in absolute silence. Every single unit of currency saved on status signaling is a vital unit deployed into your ultimate financial independence. The modern financial architecture is highly volatile, and entirely new paradigms of value storage are constantly emerging from the digital space. A purely traditional, conservative portfolio ignores the asymmetric growth potential of decentralized assets. Allocating a minor, strictly controlled percentage of your wealth into dominant digital currencies provides exposure to this unprecedented technological shift. However, you must utterly reject the emotional gambling mentality that destroys the masses. Placing your entire life savings into a speculative frenzy simply because of social media hype is a display of critical psychological weakness. You must embrace a philosophy of highly calculated exposure and supreme patience. Invest only the capital you are mathematically prepared to lose, and maintain absolute emotional detachment from the chaotic daily fluctuations of the market. None of this strategic maneuvering carries any weight if your physical vessel ultimately fails under the pressure. Sacrificing your biological health to accelerate your wealth is a deeply flawed equation that always ends in ruin. A decaying, exhausted body simply cannot enjoy or protect the spoils of a sharp mind. You must actively maintain your physical endurance to withstand the grueling, long-term war of wealth creation. Understand clearly that time is your only truly finite resource, and right now, you possess it in extreme abundance. The exact trajectory you establish today will compound relentlessly into your future, whether you like it or not. You are actively building either a permanent prison of debt or an impenetrable fortress of autonomy. The game of wealth is silent, highly methodical, and entirely unsympathetic to your excuses or complaints. The fundamental blueprints have now been laid out clearly before you. The only remaining variable in this equation is your personal capacity for ruthless execution.